What's up, everyone, and welcome back for round 2 of the Stanley Cup playoff prediction video. I tried to get this out before round 2, but I've been sick for like 3 days, and you'll see it in some of my upcoming recordings. Probably scheduled throughout the next month because I'm kind of over stocked on recordings right now. So just in the next few videos for each series, you might notice that I'm slightly sick in some of them, and I was too sick to really do this video yesterday. I was super sick, but no, I'm a little bit better, and tonight is the night that game ones are being played. So I'm gonna go over the series that are being played tonight first. In the last round, I changed my bracket challenge from my video. I ended up going, I think, 0 for 4 in the West, and I went like 4-0 in the East. I picked all the teams right in the Eastern Conference. But I got all of them wrong in the West, I believe. Let me double check that real quick. Oh no, I changed one prediction. I said the Blackhawks were going to win in my bracket, but the only things I said differently from the video were the Blackhawks were going to win in the West. Instead of the Predators, which is what I said in the video, and the Canadians would win over the Senators. I said the Senators would win in the video. But other than that, I got that was all my picks stayed the same. I got 5 out of 8 right, and you can tell I watched Eastern Conference hockey because I got perfect on all of them, and I got the games right in almost all of them too. I was off by one game on every series besides the Lightning Red Wings one where I said it would be 5, and it ended up being 7. So that's my review for the first round. Again, the video is slightly different, but on my NHL.com thing, I did put slightly different teams because someone kind of talked me out of that, and someone tried to convince me Calgary, and I was like, no, Calgary is not good. This is the playoffs. This is when the good, the bad stat teams start performing badly, and obviously that wasn't the case. So tonight we had a game that actually just finished. It's 10:30 right now. A game that finished with a wild finish in Game 1, the Capitals and the Rangers, where Joel Ward scored with just 2 seconds left to seal Game 1 for the Rangers or the Capitals, which is awesome because as a Capitals fan, I love the idea of splitting the first 2 games. At the very least, we have a 1-to-1, thing going back to Verizon Center, which is not the greatest playoff building, but still, maybe Barry Trotz can kind of change that fortune. It definitely changed last round. I noticed a huge difference in just the way the team played compared to years past, where it was all offense, and physicality's been it's been really good. I've loved the new identity for the Capitals, a lot more of that. It's still fun to watch goal scoring. Don't get me wrong, I love goal scoring. I love watching, obviously, I like the Capitals so much because they have Alexander Ovechkin, who's one of the, in my opinion, the best player to watch, most electrifying player to watch in the entire league. But it's awesome to see this new kind of brand of that being played on top of still having, big mega point producers and highlight reel goals from your kind of top end players. And instead of ranting, I'm actually going to get to what I think will happen in the series. Now, I'm a Capitals fan, and as I said to my friends after the series went, because they're Tampa Bay fans, and obviously if Tampa Bay wins their series and Washington wins their series, they will fight each other for the conference, which would be awesome because that would put basically me at stake with most of my friends, which is cool because I like being the underdog, but at the same time, I don't feel like the Capitals have the greatest chance in the world of advancing past this round. Now, this team's way more built for a playoff run than they were, I think, was it 2 years ago when they faced the Rangers in the first round? I believe it was 2 years ago, and I think it was the second round. It might have been the third, though. It was whatever year they got kicked out in the. So I think it was Washington played New York in the first round because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that New York lost in the second round, and that's why they fired Alain Vigneault. It was the year that Boston and Chicago were in the Stanley Cup final. It might have been the second round because I think New York was actually in the conference final that year. I'm not sure. I don't remember, but I know they met 2 years ago, and Game 7 went horribly for the Capitals. And that it's a very different atmosphere for the team, definitely, since that era of just the pure goal scoring, where it's more of a two-way game now, devoted physical play. depth throughout the lineup in terms of offense and defense. Well, they do have a lot of offensive threats. They have a lot of just as many defensive threats and a good amount of two-way players. So I think the team's better, but I don't think the team's better necessarily than the New York Rangers. I think the New York Rangers are going to win the Stanley Cup this year. I've not been silent about that. They were my pick about at the mid-season point. I don't remember if I made a video at the All-Star break. I believe I did. Whatever time I made a video about the NHL, like a podcast type thing, I did an award frontrunners section and a kind of preliminary Stanley Cup pick, and I believe mine was LA and New York again, and I picked New York to win. I'm pretty sure. No, it was Nashville and New York, excuse me, which is exactly what it ended up being in my Predators GM mode the first year of that. Because I remember that was my pick because I even said it in that video. I was like, oh, this is my pick in real life for the Stanley Cup Finals. So that being said, I think the Rangers are going to win this. However, I don't think it's going to be very easy because these teams are very, I wouldn't say well matched, because I think the New York Rangers straight across out-talent the Washington Capitals. Their first line's just about even. They do have the advantage of having a better winger than, I think their top line is very balanced, it's Derek Stepan, Martin St. Louis, and Rick Nash. I believe that's their top line, or at least it was when I was still kind of paying attention to the Rangers a few weeks ago. And that top line's only better to me, like in my eyes, because they have that third player who's really good, whereas the Washington's top line's Backstrom and Ovechkin, and then it's like a rotating cast. Marcus Johansson's good. Joel Ward's good, but they're not great elite players, and I'd consider everyone on that New York Rangers top line an elite player, or at least at one point was an elite player. Obviously Martin St. Louis is on the back end of his career, and he didn't have kind of a down year, but there's more offensive threats on the Rangers. There's not as many points to go around, and I'm one of the biggest, not really advocates, because it's not really something you can advocate, but I'm one of the biggest believers in the philosophy that there are only so many points to go around in a season, and I just feel like Martin St. Louis was kind of him and his lack of points kind of comes from, players like Jesper Fast. He came in and he didn't play last year. He's obviously going to get some points. He had, I believe, almost 20, 15 to 20, somewhere in there. Kevin Hayes was a great rookie. He had 50 points almost, and they obviously added players on defense like Keith Yandel and Dan Boyle, who are capable of picking up their points as well. And I believe Yandel was a point every 2-game player for the Rangers after they acquired him at the trade deadline. So that's taken away points. But anyway, Martin St. Louis is still a great threat. Nonetheless, he's an excellent playmaker. He can score goals himself. Rick Nash is one of the best goal scorers in the league this season, and his playoff performance is shaky at best usually, but at the same time, there's still the threat there. It's not he's a completely different player in the playoffs. He can't score goals at all. He doesn't perform, yes, up to standards necessarily, but that doesn't mean he can't, that doesn't mean he can't perform at all. So I'm picking the Rangers, 6 or 7 games. Mine always go give or take one game. In the last round, every series I got right was off by 1 game. So, it was either one more or less game besides the one series that I got right, obviously. But, I'm going to pick the Rangers. That was a really long prediction, but that was one I had the most to say about. My Western Conference picks aren't necessarily made with the most background knowledge. I don't watch much Western Conference hockey. I think the only really Western Conference games I saw this year were Chicago, because they put Chicago on, on Wednesday Night Rivalry against New York and Pittsburgh and all these big market teams. They'll put them on against. But that was about my extent of watching Western Conference hockey this year. So I'm not 100% educated on this. I just know what I know from stories around the NHL, stats. Analysts, and stuff like that. But from what I've seen, I like to pick against the Ducks, And the Calgary Flames had a really good series last round, and they have the benefit of playing as a team and playing well at home. I don't think they lost one home game. In the last round, I believe they lost one home game. But their fans are excited. They play very well. They're definitely the underdog, and they have a lot to prove. And I just feel like the Ducks they're a team that's not ever really built to play well in the playoffs the way they're currently structured, because they're not very good offensively and they're not very good defensively. They, like the Flames, all season, relied on comebacks. And this is the series where you're going to see what exactly is the better team. And so while I'd like to pick Anaheim, I don't know if Anaheim's capable of pulling off all those comebacks the same way. Like Calgary is determined, and they're younger, and they have more to prove. I think Calgary's going to take it in 6. I think they're going to split the first 2, and then they'll take both at home from them, and then Anaheim will come back with 1 game at their home. And then the Flames will go back to their place and clinch it in 6. On to the second set of games, the Lightning and the Canadiens. I didn't watch a whole lot of the Lightning in the first round, but I know they're very inconsistent. They were quite inconsistent. They got shut out twice, I believe. And they relied a lot on Tyler Johnson, who had 6 goals, I believe, in the first round. It was ridiculous. He had it was 6 or 7 goals, and he had 2 goals 3 times, I believe. So I think it was 6. And I don't know if he had one in Game 7 because I didn't look at the stats. I just saw the win was 2-0. I don't even know who scored the goals. But yeah, I'd like to pick the Lightning, but at the same time, my gut feeling tells me that the Canadiens are just kind of destined for the conference finals this year, in a rematch with the Rangers. And I feel like Carey Price, I don't know what his playoff performance has been like so far, but obviously his team's in the second round, so it wasn't that bad, considering how bad their offense is on that team. Carey Price must have played at his normal kind of elite level, or at least at a great level that'll be enough to push them over the edge. I think playing in a playoff series against the Lightning, Carey Price is absolutely going to have to be on his A game, and someone is going to have to step up offensively. This is not going to be like last year, where the backup was Anders Lindback. They have 3 very capable goalies. If one of them gets hurt, they have Ben Bishop, and obviously if he gets hurt, they have Andrei Vasilevsky, who was arguably better than Ben Bishop in the regular season. The only thing with him is inexperience. And then they have Kristers Gudlevskis, who last year played in the playoffs and actually performed quite decently in relief of Anders Lindback, and had decent stats for being a relief goalie. I don't think he even gave up maybe 1 or 2 goals in the 4 games they played, and he played 3 of them in relief of Lindback. So their goalie situation is a lot more resolved than it was last year, when the Canadiens just stomped on the Lightning and they were giving up goals left and right, and no one could score on Carey Price. I think that the Lightning are a much better team this year, defensively and offensively. They're just too deep, and that's why I'm kind of it's hard to pick against Tampa Bay in any round, because there's a chance that any line can score goals. The Stamkos line, obviously Stamkos didn't have a goal in the playoffs, but I mean he's still a 3-time 40 goal scorer in the NHL, and he has a Rocket Richard. He's obviously going to be a threat constantly. You can never be oh, it's Stamkos, he's not going to do anything. You're never gonna find yourself saying that. You got to be prepared. And then that second line is arguably as good, if not better, as a line. And Tyler Johnson's obviously a player on the rise, and his wingers are grade A. Those guys are top-notch wingers. You cannot ask for better line mates if you were Tyler Johnson. That line is just arguably the best line in the NHL. And then they have the third line, which is Valtteri Filppula on it, who is obviously a great playmaker. I don't know if they have I haven't paid attention to them really in the playoffs. I don't know if they have Filppula back on the top line, but I know toward the end of the regular season it was Killorn, Stamkos, and Callahan. But I don't know now what they're doing with that line. And they have Jonathan Drouin, if he plays, as well, who's a great playmaker, excellent playmaker, and he can score his own goals too. He hasn't really proven that yet in the NHL, but I mean, the ability is there. Um, and he's not, obviously not a top end player yet, but one day he will get there, and I feel like this is a big step for him. Like if he plays in the playoffs and proves that he can score goals, he still obviously doesn't have the trust of the coach, so he might not get a whole lot of playing time, even if he does play a playoff game. I don't know if he's played a playoff game yet. I know he was a healthy scratch in the last couple games, like I read stories about it, but yeah, the Lightning are just too deep to count out any lines, really. I'm trying to think of other players for them. Oh, they also have Anton Strawman on defense who can, get a lot of offense for them. I'm trying to think of other players. I'm going to look quick at who on their team I might be thinking of. I've got my phone out right now on Yahoo Sports with these stats right up. Yeah, Killorn, Drouin, Brian Boyle's a great playoff goal scorer, and he's a good two-way forward. He's always, a threat to score a goal with depth, obviously goal scoring. And then they have Cedric Paquette, Vladislav Nemesnikov. These guys are all deep. Like, this is a very deep lineup full of people who are very capable of goal scoring, and their defensemen are very good at generating offense as well. Obviously, you have players like Victor Hedman, Anton Strawman, Jason Garrison, Matt Carl, all good offensive defense, like not offensive defensemen strictly, but they're very good at generating offense on the back end to help out the forwards. So two things have to happen for the Canadiens to win this series. Carey Price has to play better than he did during the regular season, which I doubt is possible. And they have to find someone who's going to score goals for them. And I don't see that happening. So I'd like to think the Canadiens are a better team just because they have the better player. They have the advantage on the defensive side. But the Lightning's offense might be too much, and I think Braden Coburn really pushes them over the edge defensively. I think, I'd consider Braden Coburn one of the best defensive defensemen in the NHL. He's up there with Shea Weber, and with the likes of Shea Weber, and I'm trying to think of others who would be just, huge defensive threats. Like, they can shut down. Ryan Suter's another one who's, really kind of like a shutdown defenseman who, is known to contribute offense, but is not, obviously, his priority. I'm trying to think of others. But Braden Coburn's definitely one of the best strictly defensive players on the back end in the blue line in the NHL. And I think that kind of helps, well, not kind of, it immensely helps their defense, and you can definitely tell when he's out there that their defense plays 10 times better. So if they have Tyler Johnson, who's a great defensive player, and they have Braden Coburn out there at the same time, I don't know if the Canadiens are going to be able to score when they have both of those guys out on the ice, because they just make their teammates so much better defensively. So I'd say the Canadiens don't find enough to win this year, and the Lightning get their revenge. However, I don't think it's going to be very easy again. None of these series are going to be very easy. I think the Lightning win it in 7 or 6. Yeah, I'll go 6. I'll go 6 for the Lightning. They'll probably, again, split the first 2, win 2 at home. Canadiens will get 1 at their home. Or maybe I don't know. Maybe they'll split 2-2, and then the Lightning will just take control after that. On to the last series, Wild and Blackhawks. Hard to pick against Chicago. My main thing in picking against Chicago initially the last round was that I didn't know, 1, that Patrick Kane was going to be back, and 2, what kind of impact he would have for his team. But the more I thought about it before the playoffs actually started, because I made that video 3 days before the playoffs started, as soon as the series were officially announced, I realized that just having him in the lineup is going to change the way that you game plan against them. So, the goaltending uncertainty is a cause for concern. If I was a Chicago fan, I would not be assured that I know who's going to be goaltending for me. Because obviously Scott Darling has played very well in the playoffs, but any bad moment you have to wonder if they decide to go back to Corey Crawford. That's just my personal kind of wonder. Obviously, I'm not a Blackhawks fan. I don't watch Blackhawks often, so I'm not 100% sure if this is even a concern. But, who's the goaltender is going to be kind of a question mark as the series lingers. I think the Wild are riding momentum a little too high, and I think Devin Dubnyk played a couple bad games last round, or not so good games the year. Like obviously, Devin Dubnyk's a Vezina finalist this year. Whether he deserves it or not going to be the topic of discussion particularly today. But he played a couple games last round that kind of made you question really like if he was as good as he played this year. Obviously, there was one game where he gave up 6 goals, and there was another game that he didn't play very well in either. I think it was this game 2. I assume this is where where he only like had an 865 save percentage and Tarasenko had a hat trick. That was game 2. Game 2 and game 5, I believe it was. I'm trying to do the math right now. Game 2 and game 5, he played pretty poorly. And I don't know. Chicago's a weird team to predict because it's hard to know whether they're good offense. They have a lot of good offensive players, but like the regular season, it's hard to know whether or not they're going to perform. At the same time, I don't think that Minnesota's got enough to go on against the Blackhawks. I look at their lineup and I feel like the Blackhawks outmatch them in every facet, except for possibly goaltending. If you consider Devin Dubnyk a worthy Vezina finalist, I'm not necessarily sure I do. At the same time, I do feel like he has played very well this season, particularly. And I feel like Scott Darling's unproven, and even if you go with Corey Crawford, again, he didn't have the best regular season. Corey Crawford's obviously not an elite goalie. He's just, for the team he plays on, he does very well due to the situation that he's in, obviously. He has very good stats, but that's again probably a byproduct of the players playing in front of him, particularly when you have both Nicholas Hjalmarsson and Brent Seabrook, who are those were the guys I was thinking would have been great examples of the purely defensive defenseman. Nicholas Hjalmarsson is obviously just one of the best defensive defensemen in the league, and I don't know why I didn't think of him earlier when I was thinking of Braden Coburn, and Shea Weber and Ryan Suter, but I'm gonna pick Chicago in 7. So kind of recap. So in the Rangers Capitals, I'm gonna go Rangers over Capitals in 7. Ducks Flames in 6. Lightning Canadiens, Lightning in 6, and Blackhawks Wild, Blackhawks in 7. So this ran a little long, but I feel like I went a lot more in depth. I had the liberty to anyway than I did in the first round. Let me know what you guys think down below. I'd like to get a little discussion going again. So let me just know what you think, and we'll see what everyone thinks down below in the comment section, or if you agree, if you disagree, whatever. I just like having your opinions. So thanks everyone for watching. Peace.